I started leading the young adults Bible study group because nobody else would do it. That's the honest truth. Our church needed someone to step up after Marcus moved away, and I figured, why not? I'd been attending Faith Community Church for 3 years, knew the members pretty well, and I liked the idea of creating a space where people in their 20s and 30s could wrestle with faith questions without judgment. So every Thursday night at 7, I'd set up folding chairs in the basement community room, brew a pot of terrible church coffee, and wait to see who would show up. We usually got about 8 to 12 people, regulars like Sarah and Tom, who'd been coming since the group started, Jessica, who always brought homemade cookies, David, who asked the most thoughtful questions. It was comfortable, predictable. Then one Thursday in September he walked in. His name was Caspian. I'd never heard that name before outside of Narnia books, and when he introduced himself, I must have looked confused because he smiled and said, "Yeah, like the sea. My mum was really into fantasy novels." He had dark curly hair that fell just past his ears, green eyes that seemed to catch every bit of light in that dim basement, and a nervous energy that made him shift his weight from foot to foot as he stood in the doorway. "Is this the Bible study group?" he asked. "It is," I said, standing up to shake his hand. "I'm River. Welcome." His handshake was firm but quick, like he wasn't quite sure how long to hold on. He chose a seat near the back, and I tried not to stare as I welcomed everyone and opened with prayer. Throughout that first session, discussing the Gospel of Mark, I noticed Caspian mostly listened. He didn't have a Bible with him, which wasn't unusual for newcomers, but when I offered to share mine, he politely declined and said he'd just listen. After the study ended, he was the last to leave. He helped me fold up chairs without being asked, stacking them against the wall with careful precision. "So what brought you to the group?" I asked, trying to sound casual as I unplugged the coffee maker. "Oh, I just moved to the area," he said. "Thought it would be a good way to meet people. Are you looking for a church home?" He paused, and I saw something flicker across his face. "Just exploring my options." That was our first conversation, short, polite, revealing nothing, but the next Thursday he came back, and the Thursday after that, and the one after that. By the 4th week, I realized Caspian still hadn't brought a Bible. He'd show up with just his jacket and his phone, settle into the same chair near the back and listen intently as we discussed scripture. He'd nod along, sometimes smile at a joke, but he never opened the Bible app on his phone, never volunteered to read a passage, never referenced specific verses in discussion. What he did do was stay after. Every single week he'd help me clean up. We'd stack chairs together, wipe down tables, and talk about everything except the Bible. I learned he worked as a graphic designer for a small marketing firm downtown, that he'd moved here from Portland, that he was an only child who called his mum every Sunday, that he made really terrible puns and seemed genuinely delighted when they made me groan. "Why did the Scarecrow win an award?" he asked one night as we were turning off the lights. "I don't know. Why?" "Because he was outstanding in his field." I rolled my eyes, but I was smiling. "That's awful." "I know," he said, grinning. "I've got 1,000,000 of them." By October, I was looking forward to Thursdays in a way that had nothing to do with Bible study. I'd catch myself watching the door at 6:55, waiting for Caspian to arrive. I'd notice what he was wearing, how he'd styled his hair, whether he looked tired or energized. During discussions, I'd find my attention drifting to him, wondering what he was thinking, why he kept coming if he clearly wasn't interested in the actual Bible study part. Sarah noticed. "He's cute," she said to me one evening as we were setting up before everyone arrived. "Who?" "Caspian. Don't play dumb, River. You light up whenever he walks in." I felt heat rise to my face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Uh-huh." She gave me a knowing look. "For what it's worth, he stays after every week to help you clean up. Nobody else does that. He's just being nice." "Maybe," Sarah said. "Or maybe he's staying for the same reason you want him to stay." I didn't know how to respond to that. I'd known I was gay since college, had even dated a few guys, though nothing serious. But I'd never talked about it at church. Faith Community was welcoming enough, progressive by evangelical standards, but I still felt that familiar tension between my faith and my sexuality. Leading a Bible study while harboring a crush on one of the male participants felt like crossing some invisible line I'd drawn for myself. That Thursday we studied the story of David and Jonathan. I hadn't planned it as any kind of statement. It was just where we were in our chronological journey through the Bible. But as I read the passages about their friendship, their covenant, the way David mourned Jonathan's death, I felt hyper-aware of Caspian sitting 3 rows back. When I read, "Your love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women," my voice nearly caught. After everyone left, Caspian helped me clean up as usual. We worked in silence for a few minutes before he spoke. "That story always gets to me," he said quietly. "David and Jonathan?" "Yeah, the way they loved each other, the way it was just accepted, celebrated even." I looked at him. He was wiping down a table, not meeting my eyes. "It's a beautiful friendship," I said carefully. "Is that what you think it was? Friendship?" My heart started beating faster. I think it was whatever it needed to be for them. He finally looked up at me. "Have you ever been in love, River?" The question caught me off guard. Yeah, once or twice." "What happened?" "It didn't work out. Timing was wrong, or I was wrong. I don't know." I set down the coffee pot I'd been holding. "Why are you asking?" Caspian sat down on one of the tables, letting his legs dangle. "I'm trying to figure you out." "Figure me out? You're this guy who leads a Bible study, who clearly knows scripture inside and out, who talks about faith like it's this living, breathing thing. But there's something else there too. Something you're not saying." I felt exposed, like he'd somehow seen through all my carefully maintained walls. "I could say the same about you. You've been coming here for 2 months and you haven't opened a Bible once." He smiled, but it was sad. "You noticed?" "Of course I noticed." "I'm not here for the Bible study," he said softly. "I mean, I like hearing you talk about it. You make it interesting, but that's not why I keep coming back." The basement suddenly felt very small, very quiet. I could hear the furnace humming in the corner, the distant sound of traffic outside. "Then why do you come back?" Caspian looked at me for a long moment. "I think you know why." I did know. I'd known for weeks, maybe from that very first night. But hearing him say it, or almost say it, made it real in a way that terrified me. "Caspian, I'm not trying to make this weird," he said quickly. "If you want me to stop coming, I will. But I had to say something because I can't keep pretending I'm here for scripture discussion when really I'm just here because spending an hour near you is the best part of my week." I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell him to leave, to protect this neat little life I'd built where my faith and my sexuality existed in separate boxes. But a larger part of me was tired of those boxes, tired of pretending. "I'm gay," I said. The words came out rougher than I intended. "I don't talk about it here. I don't talk about it much anywhere. But I am." "I know," Caspian said gently. "I mean, I hoped. I wasn't sure, but I hoped." "And you're—" "Yeah, I am." We looked at each other across the basement, and I felt something shift. All those weeks of stolen glances and careful conversations suddenly made sense. All those Thursdays when I'd felt like we were having 2 conversations at once, one about scripture and one about everything we weren't saying. "I don't know how to do this," I admitted. "I've never. I mean, not here. Not at church." "We don't have to do anything," Caspian said. "I just wanted you to know. I couldn't keep coming here every week, helping you fold chairs and pretending I didn't want to know everything about you. Everything. Everything. What you have for breakfast. What you were like as a kid. Why you really started leading this group. What makes you laugh. What makes you angry. All of it." I walked over to where he was sitting and leaned against the table next to him. Our shoulders were almost touching. "I eat oatmeal for breakfast almost every day. I was a weird kid who read too much and didn't have many friends. I started leading this group because nobody else would, and I was afraid if I said no, I'd be letting God down somehow. I laugh at terrible puns, apparently, and I get angry when people use faith as a weapon instead of a bridge." Caspian smiled. "See? That wasn't so hard. Your turn. Why did you really move here from Portland?" His smile faded a little. "I needed a fresh start. I was going to a church there, trying to reconcile my faith and my sexuality, and it wasn't working. They said they were affirming, but there was always this undercurrent of tolerance, not acceptance. Like I was a problem they were graciously allowing, so I left. The city, the church, all of it. And you came to another Bible study? I wasn't planning to, but I drove past your church one day and saw the sign about the young adults group, and something made me come inside. Then I saw you setting up chairs and talking to people, and you just seemed, I don't know, real. Like maybe you'd understand." "I'm not sure I understand anything," I said. "I'm still figuring it all out." "Me too." We sat there in silence for a while, just existing next to each other. It felt significant somehow, like we'd crossed a threshold we couldn't uncross. Finally I said, "Do you want to get coffee sometime? Not here at church, somewhere else." "Like a date?" "Yeah, like a date." Caspian's whole face lit up. "I would really like that." We went to a coffee shop called Brewhaven the following Tuesday. It was one of those places with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls, and we sat in a corner booth for 3 hours just talking. Without the structure of Bible study, without the other group members around, conversation flowed easily. He told me about growing up in Seattle, about coming out to his parents when he was 22, about the years he'd spent trying to find a church that felt like home. I told him about my own journey, about growing up in a conservative household where being gay wasn't even discussed as a possibility, about the painful process of accepting myself while holding on to a faith that so many people said I couldn't have. "Do you ever feel like you have to choose," Caspian asked, "between being gay and being Christian?" "Every day," I admitted. But then I think about everything Jesus actually said and did, how he spent time with the outcasts and the marginalized, how he challenged religious authorities who use scripture to exclude people, and I think maybe the problem isn't that I'm gay and Christian. Maybe the problem is all the people who say those two things can't coexist. "I like that," Caspian said. "I want to believe that." "Me too." That coffee date turned into dinner the next week, then a movie, then walks through the park as fall turned to winter. We still saw each other at Thursday night Bible study, but now there was this whole other relationship existing alongside it. Caspian still didn't bring a Bible, but he started participating more in discussions. He asked questions, shared his own interpretations, and afterward, instead of just helping me clean up, we'd go back to my apartment and keep talking for hours. The first time he kissed me was in early December. We were at my place, sitting on my couch after Bible study, and he'd just made another terrible pun. I was laughing, telling him how awful it was, and suddenly he was kissing me. Soft and tentative at first, then deeper as I kissed him back. When we finally pulled apart, he looked nervous. "Was that okay?" he asked. "More than okay," I said, and kissed him again. We took things slow. Both of us had been hurt before, had learned to be cautious, but being with Caspian felt different, easy in a way nothing else ever had. He understood the specific tension of trying to hold faith and queerness in the same heart. He never made me feel like I had to choose. In January, Sarah pulled me aside after Bible study. "So are you two together?" she asked bluntly. I hesitated. We hadn't really discussed whether we were public about this, especially at church. "Why do you ask?" "Because you look at each other like you're the only two people in the room, and you're both terrible at hiding it." She smiled. "I think it's great, by the way. You seem happy." "I am," I said, and realized how true it was. "I really am." "Good. You deserve that." Slowly, carefully, we started being more open, not making announcements but not hiding either, sitting next to each other during Bible study, mentioning each other in casual conversation. Most people in the group didn't seem to care. A few seemed surprised but supportive. One couple stopped coming, and that hurt. But Caspian reminded me that we couldn't control other people's reactions. "We can only control whether we're living authentically," he said. "And I'd rather be authentic and lose some people than hide and lose myself." He was right. And having him beside me made it easier to believe that. On a Thursday in March, 6 months after Caspian first walked into that basement, he finally brought a Bible. It was a beautiful leather-bound edition, clearly new. When I saw it, I couldn't help but smile. "You brought a Bible," I said as we were setting up. "Figured it was time," he said. "I mean, if I'm going to keep coming to Bible study, I should probably study the Bible." "You've been coming for 6 months without one." "I know, but I wasn't ready before. I needed to figure some things out first." He opened the Bible, and I saw he'd already marked some pages. "I'm ready now." During the study that night, Caspian read a passage aloud for the first time. His voice was steady, confident. When he finished, he looked at me and smiled, and I felt overwhelmed with affection for this person who'd stumbled into my life and changed everything. After everyone left, we cleaned up together like always. But this time, when we finished, Caspian didn't head for the door. Instead, he took my hand. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For creating a space where I could figure out that faith and love don't have to be enemies. For being patient with me. For seeing me even when I wasn't ready to be seen." I squeezed his hand. "You did the same for me." We stood there in that church basement holding hands surrounded by folding chairs and empty coffee cups, and I thought about how strange and beautiful life could be. How sometimes the things we're looking for find us in the most unexpected places. How love, real love, doesn't ask us to choose between parts of ourselves but invites us to show up whole. Caspian never did become a Bible scholar, but he kept coming to Thursday night studies, kept asking questions, kept growing in his faith alongside me. And I learned that sometimes the most profound spiritual journeys begin not with opening a Bible, but with opening your heart to someone brave enough to show up week after week just to be near you. Total char count 16,847.